Hey, this is Don Airey here from Deep Purple, and you're listening to Sonic Perspectives. Yes, you are.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview of Sonic Perspectives. I'm Rodrigo, and my guest today is the legendary keyboard player, Don Airey. Don, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, great to be here.
Yeah, well, we're here, of course, to talk about your new album, Push to the Edge, which is set
Uh,
for release in March 28th. I
yeah,
was told this album was written a long time ago during lockdown. Is that right?
yeah, we started it in 2019.
Oh, wow.
At the time, the Purple tour had come to an end. It was very uncertain what was happening, so I thought, well, maybe I should make an album. One
Right.
more, and I phoned up Simon McBride and said, "Do you fancy doing another album with me?" He said, "Yeah." When do we start? I said, "Oh, tomorrow." So he flew over from Ireland, and I got Carl Sentence, and we got together for 2 or 3 days. I can't quite remember, and then straight in the studio for 5 days and did the backing tracks with John Finnegan and Dave Marks.
Mm,
It all went very quickly. It was pretty intense, and then of course lockdown happened,
yeah.
so we finished. We did the vocals and some of the solos in 2021, and then there was another lockdown, and then Simon joined Deep Purple.
Yeah.
So we mixed it in 2022, and I kind of forgot about it, handed it in. And next thing I know, I get a phone call saying, "Oh, we're releasing a single called Tell Me." I said, "Oh, what's that from?" Your album, man. I went, "Oh, yeah."
Right. Almost like
Keep
an afterthought.
it.
Yeah.
You're always the last to know.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, the first single, Tell Me, that you just mentioned, it really lays a template for the whole album and has that distinctive 70s hard rock vibe, which you're
Yeah.
famous for, of course. And Carl really shines on that track. So tell me about that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of the ones that were written just before the album. I
Mm,
think we were part of it in the studio too. When we needed an instrumental thing, that came up out of nowhere.
mm.
Um, yeah, Carl's always got his own way of doing things, and he really gives it some stick on that track.
He does. Yeah. Yeah.
He's great, Carl. You don't have to say anything to him about what to do. He just seems to know how to sing it and what to sing about, and yeah, I just keep out the way. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, one thing I noticed, even when I received your previous album, One of a Kind, back in 2018, I was expecting a big focus on keyboards, but it's very much a collective effort, although it takes your name on the release, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a band that we've Carl and I really put a band together in 2008, 2009.
Mm,
We did an album called Light in the Sky, and Carl wrote most of the lyrics. Um, and we toured with that. So we made a thing. Every year we do a 3-week tour with a tour bus, with a trailer with the gear in the back,
right.
play clubs and small theatres. And that's how we met. We got Simon on board, and then John Finnegan. So really, it's always been a bit of a band thing, and
Mm,
that's the thing for me. That's been what changed my life right at the beginning. Joining a band
yeah.
when I was 13 or 14. I went from being a shy, lonely kind of academic kind of guy to,
Yeah.
oh, suddenly I got lots of mates and girls chasing me, and I see what the big wide world's about.
Right, right. Well, speaking of another track, I love the Spanish vibe of the second track, They Keep on Running. It
Oh,
reminded a little bit of the Purple song called Soon Forgotten. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. It's from Perpendicular before you joined, but
oh yeah, I
yeah,
vaguely remember it.
yeah.
It's just kind of, I said to Carl, we should do something really heavy. Let's try and get something like the thing I was after, that I'm always after, is Robin Trower,
Oh,
that kind of vibe. Um, and that's a bit of it. It's a bit more Robin Trowerish than say Deep Purplish, but
yeah, yeah. I
yeah, it
agree.
wasn't a
Yeah,
track I liked very much at first, but now when I hear it, I think, oh,
yeah.
it sounds good. really good, especially the intro. John Finnegan started playing a Spanish rhythm, and I said, "Oh, that'd be great with the trumpet." So when we got this violinist Steve Bentley Klein in, I knew he'd play trumpet, and I said, "Oh, have you got your trumpet with you?" He said, "Always." So we
Awesome.
we had a little trumpet intro, yes, little
Yeah.
flavor, yeah,
Yeah, it really fits. Yeah.
yeah,
And well, track number four, Rock the Melody, has kind of that Middle Eastern vibe, which is really cool
yeah,
as well, and incorporated in a rock scenario. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, when we gave the track to Carl, I thought he'd come up with, you know, some exotic travel thing,
Mm,
meeting, exotic temples and
right.
that kind of thing. But he didn't go very far, just his basement.
Yeah, I call this the Kashmir factor, where you add a certain edge to a song with that
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I really like that track. I think it goes places,
Yeah,
visits lots of different bits of the rock spectrum, if you like. And
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
I
And
love the
I,
bit where it just subsides and then
mm,
John Finnegan comes in with a kind of Bonham-esque fill.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I like how Flame in the Water gives us a bit of a break. It's a ballad, so it's kind of like you strategically placed it in the middle of the album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. It was another one that Carl and I wrote a few years ago, I think,
Mm,
and about some lost love of his.
okay.
There's been so many with Carl that he's not quite sure who he's writing about. But
Right. An amalgamation of several of them, right?
yeah, yeah. But it's very beautiful, I think. But
Yeah.
we got to the end of it, and it ends on a major chord, and I said to Carl, I don't think we're finished here. It's finished, and suddenly this heavy riff came to mind, and that's how it ends. And I really like, especially with the solo that Simon does. Simon does a wonderful solo
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
fade.
Yeah.
It's really, really quite something. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
You've got light and shade. That's what I was trying to do during the album. Keep that bit of the rock and roll palette going.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And A Girl from Highland Park is another one I'm curious about because the title seems to be very specific about someone, but it's an instrumental.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
Well, we'd finished. I mean, we had a very intense recording week,
Mm,
putting all the backing tracks down. And it got to the end, and at 4 o'clock, Dave Marks, the bass player, on the last day of recording, said, I've got to go. I'm playing at the London Palladium.
yeah.
But we still had 2 hours. I thought, what can we do? And I had this chord in my head.
Yeah.
Um, and we just kind of made up this slow song. And Simon drops out in the middle because he doesn't know what I'm playing. And
Right.
I don't know what I'm playing. I'm just kind of improvised.
Yeah.
So Harlem Park's in LA. It's part of
Okay.
LA. And it's there's a very wonderful young songwriter came out of Harlem Park, a girl of whom I'm a big fan. And the first chord is from one of her songs called "I Love You," and it's really dedicated to Billie Eilish. And
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay. I didn't know that. So
surprisingly,
yeah.
Simon said, "Don't tell anyone."
He just told me so. And well, the album ends with Finnegan's Wake, which is, of course, a mention of drummer John Finnegan, but also the name
Yeah,
of the James Joyce novel, and
that's
where
right.
where you introduce the band, which is really cool, in the
Yeah,
studio. So
yeah.
yeah,
Well, the James Joyce novel is called Finnegan's Wake,
yeah.
which is but our title's Finnegan's Awake.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Because for once, John he picks up things so quickly that he
Mm.
goes to sleep while waiting for us to catch up with him. And we go, John, wake up. Oh, sorry.
Right.
So I said to him, John, give us your Steve Gadd impression. Go on, go on. So he came up with that little intro and it just went from there. We just kind of all made it up.
Oh, really cool. Yeah. And well, you mentioned Simon, but he really does shine throughout the album. And I know
Yeah,
he's been playing with you for a number of years.
that's right.
His solos are always the high points, and it was like that on One of a Kind too.
Yes, that's
It's
right.
like your chemistry goes way back, right?
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
noticed that about him. His solos are always they're always different, but he seems to know how they're going to be. You know, he
Right.
has a picture of in his head of how it's going to go. Whereas someone like me just makes it up as you go along and hope you get through to the end. He seems to have a complete picture in his head. He's an amazing player. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And well, I've seen your solo shows on YouTube, and they're very cool. On one of them, you even played Child in Time from the Purple, right?
Yeah.
Can we expect the True to promote this album? As small as it is, but
I I think yeah, we're going to do something maybe in September.
oh, okay.
Oh, we're going to,
Yeah.
Brexit permitting. It's very difficult now to do what we used to do because of Brexit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I heard stories. I'm not in the region. I'm in Toronto, by the way, but yeah, I know the stories of
We're in
how hard it
Toronto.
I am.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. 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 And well, of course, the Deep Purple schedule permitting as well, right? Because you
Yeah,
guys are always so busy,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I will try and fit it in. Yeah.
yeah. I interviewed Steve Morse a couple of years ago when he was still in the band, and he
Oh,
did
yeah.
say that the band took most of his time. It's incredible to me that you guys are still active or this active in your
Yeah.
70s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's quite incredible to me too.
yeah. I
But
was do Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the last 6 months of the tour was, I would say, one of the best 6 months of my life, certainly my touring life. And I
Right.
think it was the same for everybody else in the band. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was doing the math the other day, and in a few years, you have a longer tenure in the band than John Lord. I bet you didn't expect that, right? That took
Right,
me
right.
aback, actually.
Well, I joined for 3 gigs.
And here you are, 20
Here
years
I am.
later. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
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 And well, I'm curious about your early days in the rock world because when you started, there was no template for what you did, and keyboards were not that prominent in rock bands. In a way, I guess you and John laid the template for a lot of bands that came afterwards, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny position. I
Mm,
mean, John had a lot more security because Purple was very much his band. You know,
right.
he started it. I think it was going to be called Orpheus. That was, that was his title, but Richie said, no, 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 no. It was,
Yeah.
but with me, I've always kind of joined the band and been on the outside a bit. And
Right.
you just have to hope that what you add,
Mhm,
help the whole thing along. And it's very much that way with this new record of mine.
mhm,
You just hope you can help weld it all together. And then
right.
you add the little extra ingredient that
Yeah.
makes it a bit different and a bit special.
Yeah.
And
W-
that's always been my plan.
Right. Yeah.
My
Well,
modus operandi. Yeah.
yeah. But I think, one thing that I see a change in is that keyboard is a lot more prominent in the modern rock bands, like particularly in the prog metal realm, like Dream Theater, Symphony X, Haken, the shirt I'm wearing right now. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, do you keep up with let's say the modern prog output or not at all?
Uh,
A little bit.
a little bit, yeah.
Right.
I've just been raving about some album I've just heard by a girl called Cassiette.
Oh,
Nobody heard of her, but the Prodigy have produced her. And she's quite a guitar player as well as being a singer and songwriter.
okay.
It's very impressive. And
Right.
I really liked it. Yeah, yeah, you hear a few things that make you sit up. As Richie used to say, it never does to get too complacent. You've got to be listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And well, you played with many acts in your career, one of which was Ozzy, who's bowing out in a few months on a final live show.
Yeah.
Was there an invitation for you to join him on stage one last time or not?
Not as far as I've heard, no.
Okay. Okay. You planning to attend in any capacity or
I think all the tickets are gone.
they are? Yeah. Yeah.
It's the talk of the town, I tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. Same
I
here.
just heard from Rival Sons that they're on the bill now as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, good friends with them. Maybe they can get me in.
Maybe. Well, and speaking of yet another collaboration you did, can I ask you about your role in the Painkiller album of Judas Priest? Your work is only apparent on Touch of Evil, but I know you played on a lot more. Are there any recordings available where you're louder in the mix, or?
I think they did a remix, yeah,
Mm,
but I'm not sure what they did with it.
okay.
I mean, I had bits and pieces here and there. I mean, it's a long time ago. I can't
Yeah.
remember really.
Fair enough. Fair
I
enough.
remember they were very nice to work with. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. And well, I think at the time they were going for something a lot heavier. Yeah.
yeah,
So keyboards got a little buried in the mix, but yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What a
Uh,
surprise.
yeah. Yeah. And well, I think you hit the perfect balance of being a successful musician, but you can still go shopping or go to the pub without being recognized.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that? And how do you deal with fame? Does that bother you in any way or?
Well, it's nice to have a little bit,
Hmm.
but to be, so you can't go out anymore. I wouldn't like that. No.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I'm going out to a pub tonight and just along, I'm up north and there's a pub along the road and they have a music night. So I go in and sometimes I join in.
Uh,
Always very nice.
and do people recognize you and like, oh, it's Don
Yeah, yeah,
Airey?
yeah,
Huh?
yeah. Oh, they get me a seat and sit me down. They know how old I am. They get me a drink.
Really cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
And and we spoke about the maniacs that you work with. You probably have a million stories to tell. I mean, of Ozzy, Judas Priest, Rainbow, Deep Purple, etc.
yeah.
Would you consider writing a book? I heard there was something in the
Well,
works.
I'm always writing the book, but it's
Mm,
always halfway through because
right.
my career keeps going on. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, but this year's the year I'm going to finish it, and
Oh, okay.
so something towards the end of this year, it should
Awesome.
be out.
Awesome.
I've got a few titles, but um, it's going to be light-hearted rather than doom and gloom and
Yeah. I
um,
think the problem with bios like that is people go for the dirt most of the time, but you know, and sometimes people are not comfortable sharing all of that. But yeah, I hope you keep it classy. But
oh yeah, I'm just the funny bit. There's been some incredibly funny things happen to me, and
right, right.
I feel I've been very lucky. Looking back to be around
Hmm.
so many very talented people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They've really helped me along.
yeah. And when it comes to Purple, you released one of the best albums of last year, Equals One. It seems that Simon has given you guys a shot of adrenaline that you didn't even know you needed. What is the current plan right now?
Yeah, it was great when he came in. He just fitted straight in, and
Yeah,
it was like everybody woke up with like Rumpelstiltskin. They're just from their long sleep, and we all
yeah,
started rocking again, and riffs started pouring out, and everyone was very enthusiastic. We didn't expect it to be the success it was, I must
yeah,
say.
yeah,
It was a bit overwhelming and very, very gratifying for everybody in the band. So, it's given us a new burst of energy. So we'll be keeping it going,
yeah,
let's say.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
One
mean,
more time.
yeah. Well, to a certain extent, the same can be said about when Steve Morse joined, or when you joined, or when you guys
Yeah.
started working with Bob Ezrin. Some bands struggle with changes, but you guys seem to absolutely thrive with it.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And last question for me. I'm curious about your stance on the use of technology in music. A lot of people embrace the apps, AI, etc., while others make a point of staying analog. What's your take on this?
Well, AI is a funny thing. I mean, I've heard the young people running the music business now
Mm,
say we won't need music or musicians. We can just produce it. But they're in for a terrible shock because AI will never write a tune,
yeah,
will never do a solo.
yeah,
It can write poetry and it can paint pictures, but I don't think it'll ever write music that anybody will warm to.
yeah. I don't think so either. Yeah, we'll see. I guess it depends on how well we use it and use it
Well,
for the good, right?
we just received an AI
Mm.
Deep Purple track.
Oh wow, how did that go?
And my son got it, Mike, who's the production manager for Deep Purple. I
Mm.
don't know who sent it to him,
Yeah.
but it sounds like Gillan. Uh,
Okay.
and the riff's all right, but the solos are the funniest thing you've ever heard in your life. They're just a succession of very fast notes with no gaps.
I bet. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I hope we will learn to use it for good and that good music
Yeah.
comes along, helped by it, but not fully produced by it. I hope that's what I would hope. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Don, at this point, thank you so much for the interview. All the best with the new release. I'll go back to listening to Push to the Edge.
Oh, well, thank you.
Awesome.
It's been
Have a
very
good
nice
one.
talking to you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Whatever. All the best.
Bye. All the
Bye
best.
bye.
Bye.